cloud it's going to. I don't know what cloud it's going to.
Oh, that's the hard thing. Get into it.
What was the weird thing you researched this week? And we were talking about that spinning wheel.
I found the word for it. It's called a distaff. So when you do the spinning, a distaff. So if you look it up, a distaff in spinning was there was a shaft. So it's
Yeah.
that they would hold, and at the top is where they would put their clump of wool or whatever their raw material is that they wanted to spin into thread. So it's a staff. At the top is the distaff. The whole thing is a distaff. And then they would pull the thread from it and kind of hang it on a heavier thing, and it would spin. So this is what women were doing before the spinning wheel. The really ancient one was where they would do the same thing on with a rock and just hold it. But the distaff became symbolic for women's work. So it wasn't a broom, it wasn't kitchen, it was the distaff. And it
wasn't the cauldron.
This is just women's work was a distaff. Girls did it, old ladies did it, wealthy women did it. So it was all just every demographic of women, and starting all the way back, from ancient times. Then you have Victorian times. But medieval times was when they were really using it, and that's when men started getting the art shows that's when men started getting bugged that these women were kind of having their own industry, making their own products. So the art and kind of the satire of the day started showing women holding distaffs, but stabbing their husbands, or riding on their distaff, flying through the air, so it wasn't the broomstick. And there's one, I totally said it about the jousting one, where he's holding the jousting stick on a horse and she's on the other end of the field holding a distaff on her horse, because it looks kind of like a jousting. So anyway, it was interesting. It's kind of when men got a little bit I don't know, worried or jealous or out of joint with women having their own industry. So it's a distaff. And there is a really good documentary on YouTube you can watch. It's the Sacred History of Spinning. Yes, and it's called Left Hand Path Documentary. So he does get a little woo-woo, spooky on some of his other stuff. He goes in some different directions, but this is just a really nice documentary about spinning, and he goes into the story, the history of it, and it's cool. You read the comments, and it's all these really neat ladies that actually are still spinning their own thread.
Awesome.
I loved it, and how the rhythm of the spinning is kind of almost like a meditation,
You can see anything that brings women together, like, you have the distaff, you have the women coming, you need a helper probably, or they would get together and they would spin.
Yeah.
You can see how that was perjurated into their spinning tales.
Yeah.
Or they can ruin. I read one quote that said, the women could ruin many a man's life in one session of knitting,
That's true.
So anything that would, and you think about the idea of a coven, anytime women are getting together, it's going to freak them out.
Oh, for sure.
Women talk, and they're the relationship or the social fabric. So if you tear that apart,
you get some power.
Yeah.
The comment on I was just looking through the comments, like I said, of this documentary, and it's new. It was only a month old, so that's kind of cool that people. It's not like it's from the 80s where people, there's women out there spinning and
are dead.
Yeah, and there's one lady, she wrote that her Chinese grandma taught her how to spin. And she said her grandma said, history is like a weaving made from the single thread, woven through elements, times, colors, patterns, every living thing. And when the spinners sing their songs, they are connecting to that great truth that is the origin of all that is. So women are spinning the thread through all history, even though history is told through men, wars, and but it's our thread, our weaving the tale and the story. I think it's really cool. So
It gives new definition to women's work. You know,
yes.
I always love the idea when I'm knitting that it's one thread that can
Hmm.
turn into a million, like
A
things that people
sweater.
can wear and things that last. And like the bog people, her knitting's still on her body, and
Yeah.
just like, I just, I love that idea. And I love that to start out this podcast with that image of that
Yeah.
distance.
So it's
And
not
then
not a weird thing, but it is a weird, like turned into a weird thing. They took
I
this
think it says
cool.
a lot about our mission here, which is to take all these threads that have been lost and weave our women back into
Yes.
a story.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think that's what we're gonna do, because I don't know what you got to research this week, and I'm gonna tell you what I did.
Hey, let's go.
Mary Bird was an interesting lady. So she was in Springfield, Massachusetts, um, in the very beginning. She would have been the witch trials happened kind of over a span of about 80 years, but there were two big bursts of um, activity. So trials and hangings in the 20s and 30s, and then it stopped in the middle, and then it kind of exploded again in the peak was 1692, 1693. That's where
Oh,
we get most of our stories from it, and when it kind of hit its frenzy. And so Mary Burt lived in Springfield, Massachusetts. She came over with her parents from my path went, I took Mary and she took me on maybe she didn't want to be talked about so much about,
oh, uh-huh. Uh-huh.
because it definitely took me in a different, same line with our family, but a different group of people, which is what ended up being. But anyway, Mary was in.
Well, I'll just say
Okay.
for my with time with her, she definitely does not want us talking about her pregnancy in that year. Didn't you get that feeling?
Yeah, she pushed me right along to somebody else.
Oh yeah. And I every time I tried to dig into it a little more with this brother-in-law and then the other guy, it was like
Yes,
she wanted once she married that husband,
that was
and
it.
all of her biographers fall in line. They're like she may have had a
Yeah.
licentious year, but anyway,
And she had 19 kids and raised them. And
God,
Abigail is our
I can't.
relative too. So we come because Abigail's kids and her kids eventually marry. So the other sister was our lady too. So
Yeah,
that's what I mean. They're both saying
they're not interested,
no.
but
But we will tell the sad part. We won't call them the things maybe we were calling them if there was sexual addiction or.
well, some of the other descendants speak not so kindly of
Yeah.
it.
Well, let's touch on her because she'll bring us over. But
Okay.
the cool thing is, I don't know the research you did, so I don't know when to throw to you. So when you feel like you need to stay on
Um,
the story,
I was mainly just trying to fill in color of Springfield versus
yeah.
Deerfield and the neighbors and all that. But I again, every time I tried to dig into her family, like her sisters,
No, she's not having it. So fine.
no, she is not. So, but
So
we can respect that, but her story is important.
yeah. So we'll tell the nuts and bolts of it with
Okay.
respect and love. So I'll give some background, I guess, on the whole Puritan thing. So the Puritans, originally from England, they were excited about the Church of England leaving the Catholic religion, because Catholicism was too showy, too ritual-y, too almost, to them it felt a cult almost. But then the new Church of England didn't really get rid of a lot of the things. They wanted them to go further, to scrub any relics, any burning of anything, any ritual part of it. The Puritans wanted to be just completely, pious, and they were the first group. You have your first Plymouth Rock people that came over, right? And so they're kind of down south doing their thing.
And they
A lot
came
of people,
over what, 1630s?
yeah, before they're the Mayflower people. They're
Okay.
doing their own thing. They don't get to be in charge of their own government. They are still directly connected and run by England at the time. So this
Okay.
Massachusetts Bay Colony, who are the Puritans, they somehow get this charter from the king that they get to run their own government, they get to run their own church, they get to basically be a self-contained, they don't have to write to England every time they want to change a law or anything.
Hmm.
They get to be in control of their own group, which maybe is why this got so out of hand. They came over, the man that brought them over was John Winthrop Sr.
Did they come over as a congregation then?
They did. I think they had 11 boats full of
Oh,
people.
wow.
They
Okay.
all came over in, I think it was like 1,000, but they grew to be just huge. And they took over the Boston, Massachusetts, Connecticut Valley, River Valley, kind of even up to Maine, although that was like the wild frontier. And just, you probably have the map of all the villages, just basically all of Massachusetts and New Hampshire, what would be, but they were all the governing body was in Boston. So that's where it was John Winthrop Sr. And he gave the famous speech that the Puritans were going to be the city on a hill and everybody could look to them and be like them. In order to join their church, you had to testify. You couldn't just join their church. You had to prove that you were worthy over a period of time, men and women. And so once you were a member of the church, it was kind of this elite. You kind of were the saved. Because I didn't realize that Puritans believed in predestination. So if you came to this
Oh,
as a damned
so
person, yeah. So if you felt like you were damned, you were just damned. So there's no redemption or atonement.
really?
Yeah. So I don't even know if they did confessions. I'm not sure. I don't know how they were redeemed. It was just but nobody knew who was damned, I think, unless maybe they got wild with that later. But
So
so,
were there people that could conceivably live in the colony for years before being allowed to be part of the
yeah,
congregation?
or never even becoming part of it. Which is kind of comes into it. So anyway, so Mary Bert's family came and they moved around a little bit, but they eventually ended up in Springfield, Massachusetts, which was kind of the swampy, rough, hard place. It had the swamps, which made the fields really fertile. I guess you'd have these floods that came in and so it's really great for farming. But in the beginning, they weren't smart enough, or they didn't build their houses in the right place. And so it was really rough. So eventually they built their houses up on a higher level in the row. And the town eventually got segregated kind of by, I know that the Welsh people lived on the southern end, I think.
Oh,
So they kind
okay.
of segregated themselves by where they came from. So they were pretty tight knit, but they were, it wasn't dreamy, wasn't the city on a hill by any means.
It's always people want to think the village is cozy, but it's
hmm
just,
It was pretty
yeah,
petty and pretty competitive because once the town started getting their farming underway and their industry, because Pynchon, and it might
yeah,
be Pynchon, but Pynchon was the guy who founded it, and he was a religious guy. He was their minister or preacher too, right? Maybe not, but he was very religious, but also awesome with entrepreneurial industry business. So
okay. I did dig into his, and it almost sounded like, but as far as that pension is concerned, it almost sounded like he was building a planned community,
Yes.
that he built the houses, right? Am I right? And they all,
Yeah, he lotted out, gave the lots.
and then he gave credit at the store,
Mhm.
so lots of people were in, it was like a company
Yeah,
town. And so
yes,
if he needed a brick builder, he'd bring one over, but his hand was right. It was,
and
he was
everything.
kind of structuring the society.
Yeah, he was physically building the town, spiritually building the town, socially building the town.
Wow.
He was the magistrate, so he was the one that was actually in charge of, actually, it was his son. So Pynchon Sr. kind of laid that groundwork for this town. By the time our Mary comes into play, Pynchon had been involved. He went to Boston the same time that the Parsons did. So you want to
So
tell
he was
about them?
involved, no, he was involved in that,
Yeah,
right?
he was
Okay.
their child. So the Parsons, I hope I'm saying their name right. I think
Mhm.
it's, yeah. They were the first people to be in all of it, in all the witch trial stuff. They were the first two people who were tried, accused and tried for it. And they were had a terrible marriage, and she would gossip about him and kind of tell everybody their dirt. And he seemed like, the more I studied him, I don't know if he maybe was on the spectrum a little bit. I mean, he just was a sweet little loner guy. He liked to go camp by himself in the field, and he'd walk into people's houses and just kind of unannounced and kind of want to visit, or but
But wouldn't know how to make conversation
no.
and,
And he was competitive, and he was the only brick maker in town, so he had that edge, and you know, charged a little bit too much for bricks, and
well, and he was kinda an angry elf, like, if
yes.
people pushed on it and said, "I don't wanna pay it," he'd, "Oh, I will get you," or
Yeah.
"I will."
Yeah, he just was a, I don't know, he came across to me as just really misunderstood, especially because he had this fiery Welsh wife who, I
Was
think she
very,
wanted attention, or I don't know, she was, so anyway, they both eventually got accused of witchcraft. Um, and when they went to Boston to be for their trial, Pynchon went too, because he had written a book kind of uh saying that their people were getting too loose. He wanted to tighten it all up again. And in doing
oh,
that, he made his bosses in England pretty mad. And so he was being called to Boston to get in trouble for his book. He got on a boat and went to England. And so his son, then Pynchon Jr., took over the town and was the magistrate for Mary when she got in trouble. So I don't know if
okay,
you saw. So
okay.
there's just these interesting people. So in that whole environment of righteous, super, everybody knows if you're part of this church or not. You have to go through steps. So if you profess to be righteous, but you haven't spoken in tongues yet, or just,
Mm.
everybody knows everybody's spiritual status, religious status, and everybody knows everybody's business, it seems like. So here comes Mary and her family, and she is involved with a guy, right? William Samuel Wright Jr. And we see
Yeah.
in court documents that in 1655, she is suing this man. And we don't know if he's her lover, or if he's assaulting her on a regular basis. We don't know that part. But she eventually gets pregnant by whatever they've been doing. And she sues him for parenting a child, fathering a child. And so, of course, she sues him, but during the trial, they decide she's guilty too of doing all the nasty stuff. And they're both sentenced to being whipped, stripped naked and whipped 12 times.
And was she pregnant at the time, or had she had the child already?
She was pregnant.
Okay, while she's being whipped.
Yes, because they also tried her at the same trial. It must have come out during when she her testimony that she'd also had an affair with her brother-in-law. And, so they added some stripes, 12 more stripes to her sentence, but she ended up paying for that later. She because you could pay to get out of the whipping if you had enough money. So somehow she got enough money to not have that happen.
So, did you look? I looked a little bit more into that as far as she let me.
Oh, do it. Yeah.
Did you, though, already do
No,
that?
she sent me on down to Salem.
Okay, so I can color that in a little bit. Um, so she was 4 when they got there. Um, in early 1654, we see her show up, like you said, at the Hampshire County Court. Um, Samuel Wright Jr. was her big sister Elizabeth's husband.
Oh, you're kidding.
No, and they had been married for a year, Samuel and Elizabeth. Um, and let's see. So in March of 1654, Mary Burt charged Samuel Wright Jr. As being the father of her illegitimate child. And he was the husband of her sister Elizabeth.
What?
Yes. And in the court hearing, the jury charged that Samuel had use of her body 3 times.
Wow.
Um, this court said you have to have 12 whips naked in the court to marry, and you have to keep your child, which I thought was interesting. So,
Interesting.
and for
Was
him, he was also 12 whips. He had to pay support for 7 years for it was a daughter named Remembrance.
Mhm.
And some descendants have said that name is poignant, like she wants him to remember
Yes.
that. Um, and then he had to it wasn't clear at the time of the trial if she'd had the baby yet, because Samuel was told he was going to have 12 whips. He was going to have to pay her money right away. Then he had to pay for 7 years for the baby, and then offer an apprenticeship for the baby. And so they may not have known if it was a boy or a
Yeah,
girl.
probably not. I think she
Um,
was
so she was pregnant, so she
yeah.
did get whipped. And
Mhm.
then at the same time, like you're saying, they added in wickedness with Joseph Bond.
Right.
Um,
Did you find out who he is? Joseph
no,
Bon
they
Shay?
just put a stop to that. Did you?
Yeah. I tried to find out who he is, and, it didn't. I looked to see if he was a brother-in-law, so he's not even a brother-in-law. So
No,
William's the brother-in-law. Okay,
William,
so we
right?
don't
And
know who Joseph Bond is.
no, and we do see William Samuel Wright Jr. So the bondsman, the people that gave the money for bail, was Sam's father,
Mhm, I saw
and
that.
a man named Thomas Stebbins, who shows up in these Parson trial, right?
Yes, and he's our relative too.
He is?
Uh-huh. Stebbins is.
Okay. So
We're
anyway,
all
that's as far as I get. But what happened is she must have had the baby, but then she married in October. That October, she married William Brooks, who raised Remembrance
mhm.
kind of as their own. But is it true that he was like 44 when he married?
Oh, I don't know that. Did he have a first wife? He
I
did
didn't.
actually.
I wasn't able to look up that, but they're saying he was born in 1610, which would put Mary at 19 years old and him at 44.
Which I guess if Elizabeth is the oldest sister and that's who he's married to, that could be. So if Elizabeth is her big sister, and I don't have the tree in front of me, but that could be.
Yeah, you're right. So William Brooks is the man she married that brought her to Springfield, and she had her 16, 17, her happy years married life with. But I think he covered for her. I think he married her,
Oh,
possibly to save her, maybe. That's
maybe.
just me. But
I
then
mean,
I
I think so. There's definitely because Abigail, the sister, had the same. There's only been 3 fornication trials in Springfield, and Abigail, who were related, Mary's sister and Mary, are 2 of those 3.
did you get to look up? See, that's as far as
Tried to
my
get to Abigail. The only
no.
thing I got with Abigail is that we are related to her if you go up a different branch. She's there too as one of our relatives. So we're related directly. They're both grandmas, I guess, in a sense, to us.
And I did notice in looking at Mary's children, a lot of intermarriages, like you're saying. In that colony, there were
Oh,
only
yes.
50 families, right?
Yeah.
So it's a web.
So that's so interesting. Okay. So this is why she sent me on that exact path because I started noticing, wait a minute, Abigail, it's blah. Everybody's, and that sent me on um looking, I started looking across, okay, well, who else are we related to that's in Springfield or even in the
Yeah.
Richfield? So I did that super rabbit hole with just a couple, same guy, James, our guy, Sanders, grandma's dad, same line. You get over to Salem, yes, to Bray Wilkins. Bray Nickel Wilkins is our guy, and that's the Wilkins family. So they don't know each other yet, obviously. This is, I think, but in looking through people that would have been interrelated, for sure, they could have known each other. And they do eventually get married to each other. But so there's a family called Bray Nichols Wilkins. They live in he is a man who
What date?
so he was born 1611, died
Oh,
1702. So he's an older guy. It's his kids that cause, but he's interesting. He
okay.
And I found it because I was looking for Mary Bert's relatives, and I found a newspaper clipping of um in this Bray Wilkins that talked about how this pond was famous because it's where old Bray Wilkins had witches sit on his chest. And so of course I got my
Grandpa with witches on it, of course.
sitting on him.
Why not?
I'm like, thank you for your story and let's dive in here.
Mary passed off my
Yeah, she
favorite
did. She's like, you
gossip.
think I'm bad? Wait till you hear what happened to this people. So, um, so interesting. So Bray Nichols Wilkins was a man who kind of made himself, but he had a friend named, and I don't have his friend's name down. I'm not really ready to tell his story, but I'm going to tell it.
Yeah, we're just gonna organically and then we'll patch it together.
Okay. So he was married. Nobody knows for certain who his wife was, which is interesting, but they know who his best friend, loving, he writes in his will, he leaves stuff to his loving friend, John Gengel, Gengell. And most likely that's his brother-in-law. Most likely Bray married John's sister, Hannah. So,
Okay.
and they had a bunch of kids together. John and Bray were movers and shakers, wheeled and dealed, and they eventually got land in Salem Village. So Salem was getting separated. You had a lot of men made their money in Salem town, or Salem the
Okay.
town, merchants, and but once they made all their money, the town kind of seemed not as righteous to them. So they wanted to go
Oh,
start a little settlements just south of Salem town and call it Salem Village. And they bought land, and it was kind of their perfect place to be very righteous
hmm.
and enjoy their land and have no outsiders come in. So they all intermarried, they're and
Oh, interesting.
yes, it was kind
And
of
started the I mean, they're
yeah, go
so
there.
similar
Yes,
to our pioneer dude.
yes, totally.
It's so weird.
It's so weird the similar they started their own little they went to the frontier because Salem Village was the frontier, and they built it out of nothing, and it was their new Zion kind of place and
A city on a hill.
city on a hill. So, and
Okay.
they wanted to keep everything within it. This is where the preacher, he's famous, his name is Paris, and he was the reverend that they got there. Um, and these men were just kind of treated him poorly. There's another family called the Putnams, and that's pretty
Oh my
famous. Yes. Okay. So they were co, you know, rubbed shoulders and went to church with and knew and did business with the Putnams. So they were um not very nice to their preacher, their minister, Paris.
who they had brought in, or was Paris just part of their
They
group?
brought him in. They had already gone through three different
Oh, really?
reverends because they didn't the way they paid their reverends was through food and firewood and money a little bit, but they basically supported these. And if the reverends weren't preaching the way they liked, then they would stop giving them firewood. And so they finally got a guy named Reverend Samuel Paris. And right in the like middle of it, probably 1650, 16, right before the 1690s. So probably 1680s or something. I can look it up. But he was the preacher of Salem Village. And he was getting kind of bugged by everybody because they were having votes on how to pay him less. And it was just openly that people were trying to rip him off all the time. And he had a daughter, and she was friends with the Putnams. But anyway, so Bray, how do I shorten this?
Keep just let
Okay.
it roll out.
So the story you
Keep
can
your
find.
distaff going.
Okay. So the story, I'll just keep pulling.
Yeah,
See what we get.
and
So
we'll twist.
so the story is that there were just kind of negative vibes and feelings. Now you remember the witch trials kind of started in the 1620s. It peaked, and that's when we had the Hannah Parsons and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then when Winthrop Sr., who was the original founder guy and wanted the city on the hill, he was in charge about that time. And that's when people, if you believe in God, you have to believe in God. If you believe in God, you have to believe in the devil. If you believe in the devil, you have to believe in witches. So it wasn't such a weird thing to believe in witches, but they just didn't know what that looked like. So they could make up anything they wanted about what a witch would do or be like, or the devil or anything. So it was kind of fair game on anything weird could be witchcraft. So
Which is an interesting, if you don't care, an interesting connection because these the Catholic Church, in pagan religions, in pre-Christianity, many like the faith that we know about, the um, Welsh
mhm,
and Nordic, there was no concept of a devil.
Mhm.
There was no concept of it. There was more of an ambivalence. So this introduction by artificial onto, because these people were from Wales, they were from England, they were peasants, they were living this duality with their old traditions, like the superstitions,
Yes.
right? Um, so this artificial idea of a devil that you could blame everything on, you know, but you were powerless over, they were trying to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
How to use them. And of course, the devil became a weapon of power and
Right.
right? And,
Yeah,
and
it
I'm
was a
wandering off. Sorry.
social engineering through.
Yes, I'm wandering off, but it's because it's clear when you read all these trials, they don't know what they don't they really don't know. They're mixing like angels that come to their room or glows of fire. And so they're what they used to understand as natural or their
Yes.
gods or their fairies or they knew how to appease this.
Yes.
They didn't know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then you throw crazy women in the mix
Uh-huh.
who are losing it, then no wonder it links to devil and witches, right?
Yeah, and that's such a good point because the pagan where they're coming from was, you could interpret it any way you wanted, but it wasn't, like you said, harmful or out to get you or because you did something wrong. There was no judgment in it ever.
Mhm.
You don't ask gods for things, you thank them for something, and then that comes to you kind of thing. So here they have to be not only are they told, "Nope, actually it's the devil," and actually we don't know a lot about how, but he's everywhere and doing everything, and it's all and they put them in this place. It was during the mini ice age or something, like, crops
Mm,
would grow, the weather was
mm,
crazy. It was horrible,
mm.
freezing cold, just this horrible
Yeah,
situation.
I didn't understand why. I mean, they just didn't seem, the weather didn't behave. Like
No,
it was
so of
weird
course
there,
that's the
right?
devil. Yeah. So everything could be the devil. And then you go, I think on Thursdays is when they went to church or whatever, and it was all day long.
Mm,
Um, and so in Salem Village, the church and the pub were right across the street. And so they could go to church all morning, go have their drinks and food and go. So you go there and you're being told what the devil can do and told it's because you're not being righteous and somebody here didn't pray enough and that's why our cows all died or just this
yeah,
man and
just
women, just human got mixed in with it.
yeah, it just when you start reading about their relationships as a village, there's a weird power. It's not like peasants in Denmark knew who the bad guy was.
Uh-huh.
The village, ultimately, you may hate each other, but you're on the same team. It didn't seem like
No.
they were mixing these new American values of capitalism and riches
Yes.
and wealth and um, wanting to be independent with these old feudalist values where, yeah, Pynchon does run the store and I do owe him money, and but
Yeah.
Pynchon runs the minister who says there's a devil. Don't blame him, blame the devil, you know?
Ah.
And that's kind of a rabbit hole I went into. Were the women crazy? Were the men crazy? You know what I mean? Like,
Where there's actual mental illness happening.
yeah, and then this blend of like with this Parsons one where someone's saying that Hugh Parsons mesmerized their cow, so now it's giving green milk where it wasn't.
Yes.
They're mixing all these
Yes.
things they don't understand and applying like a law they're creating.
Yes, and then really, what is it when they use it in Mormon culture all the time? Wealth, prosperity gospel,
Yeah.
prosperity gospel.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's happening there too, which is so toxic and
And a hierarchy, like, are you is your husband part of the congregation? Like, Hugh
right,
wasn't part of it for a while. Is he not saying the right words?
right.
You start to see, I think about our women, and I was curious about Bodil, why she would join the Mormons. But now I'm looking at these women and I'm thinking it's this same
It's so weird.
society they keep trying to make sense of. Like, I
Right.
mean, I don't want to get into this too much, but I researching the tell me if this is way off topic, but
Yeah.
researching when Brigham Young sent the missionaries over to Denmark for the first time to do and back to England to get the news out that polygamy was a thing. Well, you follow the journals of these 7 men who left Utah, and all along the plains, all along their ships, they're trying to create a doctrine of polygamy. They talk about it at night over the campgrounds. They're trying to figure out, well, what is it? Well, if we say it's this, and then some of them are feeling guilty because they're really happy they left all those wives behind. How hard it is.
Uh-huh.
But they get to England and Denmark with this idea of half formed, not fully baked, because in Utah, Brigham's not baking it yet, you know? So I can see the same dynamic of men who think they're, and women who think they're chosen, creating, trying to make sense of everything, but still bossing each other around. I don't know. I'm getting lost
No,
now.
that's so
But
great because think of what they're actually trying to accomplish. They're trying to accomplish understanding the mind of God. I mean, what
yeah,
the thing they're trying to do is not doable. And they're still humans and they have to feed their family and they want to have sex with their people and like they're still normal human beings and even more in the earthy lifestyle than we will ever be. I mean, they have to produce food from the earth and work with the elements in nature and with their community and with a church leader and with consumption and debt. And then they're also trying to understand God. Like, could you that's
and they are actively involved in carnage, which has got to be a
yes.
weird cognitive dissonance. Like, how can you be so godly if,
And
like, how do you,
yeah, you know that they were destroying villages and
yes.
killing families and
I mean, the same attitude I read about in these, like the one about the Parsons trial. So it has all the everyone's testimonies. They treat the Indians like they're either flies that are bugging them, or someone blamed when anything goes missing.
mhm,
First they blame the Indians, and then they blame Hugh Parsons because he's a
mhm.
wit. It's either this or that. It's not that you lost it. you know I don't know, it's just and the way they even talk about the land there, how different it was for them, how new it was. They had to learn new plants, new
Yes.
medicines. They needed the Indians, but they were killing them.
Yes.
And this is a way weird aside, but just in this whole, we're building this context of what she's living in. Our Mary Burt, her son Nathaniel and his wife Mary, they were captured after, it was a few years after she died, but in 1704, the Indian War.
They destroyed Springfield and they
Okay, so they
ah,
captured Mary Burt's son, Nathaniel, his wife, and their 2 children. and his cousins, so would have been related to us. The Indians captured them, made them massacred Mary in front of Nathaniel,
Whoa.
and walked them up to Canada. And the children were never heard from again. So
Wow.
you've got these, same as our pioneer lady.
Mhm.
You've got this weird world they're creating that
Yes.
doesn't even seem real.
It's like a fantasy because they're right with their relationship with the Native Americans. Um, Pynchon, am I saying it right?
Yeah,
Pynchon.
I think so.
He used them for trade. He figured out how to trade with them because they called it Agawam. The
Oh
Agawam
yeah.
was right there next to their village, and that was their hunting ground and their waters and trapping. And he learned how it's almost so this is interesting how this is going to tie into this because it's like you had two groups of people, and I won't say the word elite and peasant, but you kind of do. You had level-headed, and I'm saying this from a woman in 2025 or whatever, but and then you had these scared, believing anything, just kind of head-turning people. And he worked with the Native Americans for commodities and gain and relationship. And then other townspeople used them to blame for things that were lost, or even some were kind of awed by them, their medicine and their kind of well, what do they know about spiritual, or what are they doing, or what kind of how they were doing it.
Oh yeah.
Um,
That's a good.
so this Winthrop, the main Puritan leader who brought everybody over, Winthrop Senior, was kind of more, I think, of that kind of thinking of, and his son, who I guess his son is interesting. He's Winthrop also. During his when he was in charge of the Puritans after his father, this one little brief moment of time was the time when the witch trials stopped. So they were going crazy with his dad. He
This is back in Salem
Yes,
Village.
back
Okay.
in Deerfield and Springville. So during
Oh, okay.
that first little burst, right?
Okay.
And then
Yes.
his dad took off to England, and then you had the son in charge, and the son was very like, no, no, witches don't sour your milk, and no,
Okay.
guys,
Really?
just relax. Witches don't. He kept telling him, like, witches won't do that. They're
Oh,
jealousies, poking you and pinching you, and and so they stopped. And then when he left, that's when it kicked up again. And I can't remember who took over after him, but he
so
left.
he kept some kind of control then.
Logic to it. So when you
Huh.
research him, though, guess what he is? He's an alchemist, which is the elite version of witchcraft. So the person most knowledgeable about anything occult and spooky was the leader of the Puritans, who actually got them to like stop killing, like, witches don't do that.
He doesn't believe in devils.
No, and that he's
Oh
an
my
alchemist.
goodness. We could talk for days about how did so the son,
Son of Winthrop, so Winthrop Jr. It's on my page. Sorry, my pages are loud when I
this
turn them.
isn't pension.
No, so Pynchon, Springfield.
Okay.
Winthrop is Massachusetts Bay Colony. He is
Windrush is
he's
the
the
big
guy that brought
shot.
he's the big shot. He got the charter with the
Oh.
king, brought over the 11 boats, was in charge of it. And
Oh,
yeah. And then first he died or something, and his son took over. So you have two fathers in charge and two sons taking over. One's Pynchon and his son in Springfield.
world.
Yeah, Winthrop is big, and
Oh,
his son was in Boston, because anytime you had a witch trial or accused anybody of being a witch, you had to eventually go to Boston to have the
okay.
hearing and investigation. And so he was there when that would happen, and he would kind of like, no, 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 no. And he's an alchemist.
And um, can you be a Puritan and an alchemist? Was there an idea of you were a was the Massachusetts Bay Colony, were they Puritans?
Puritans, yes. They
So they weren't related to the king, like you said.
Yeah, they were completely that did kind of break down. That was another problem that had happened, um, because a new king came in and he ripped up the charter. So for a
Oh,
while,
that's
they
right.
were kind of had a messy governance, and then another one came in, but during that time when Winthrop Jr. was in charge, there were no witch accusations or trials or anything like that. Nobody was hung or killed
So
for
it kind of calmed down a little bit, and then it ramped back up, you said.
back up big time. And that's when, right when Salem was dividing, and you had the Salem village and the Salem town, and you
Okay.
had in Salem village, you had the Reverend Paris, who is a big part of it because his daughter and the Putnam girl were the first two, and I don't know where they got this from because there's oh, I'm gonna say her name wrong and I don't want to. Tibisha. I might have to pause because she's the enslaved woman. But dang it, I should have written her name down. First slave. She was the slave of Paris. Paris. He had a slave woman because Reverend Paris was from Barbados and had gotten some slaves while he was in Barbados, and he brought them with him to Salem.
No way.
So
From
she got her understanding of magic. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I
Which
mean,
is the idea of a devil would have been weird for her too.
oh yeah, and she was doing her best at Tituba,
Tituba.
Tituba.
Okay. Oh yes, I've heard of her.
Yes, you can go see
Okay.
where she was. Oh, her pictures of her are terrible. Wait. Okay. I'm gonna say it wrong, but
That's okay because we'll just I guess we're getting the information out here,
yes,
and then we'll
because we would be sad if we weren't recording this, and also maybe some.
this is important because this is how we start to weave, and then we'll
Yes,
clean up the edges,
yes, and we might
right?
be in the middle of our thread because we might want to go even further back.
I know. I
That's
know. I'm just loving this new area.
I know. So Tituba was the slave house maid of that Reverend Paris, who had daughters, and so somehow these two girls, I guess it was a normal thing to do, but these two girls are like girls we know that all they can think about is who they're going to marry one day. They just want to know who the man they're going to marry is going to be. And I guess there's something you can do where you put curdled milk or some kind of milk. Do you know about this?
I know about all different types of scrying.
Yes. So they went back in the woods one day and did this thing where they could and when they came out from doing that, I think they just felt super guilty. And
Oh,
I think maybe to do maybe like was like, oh, that's I don't know. Somehow they got really shameful of the thing they did because it was witchcrafty. It was magic, right?
how old were they?
They're 12 and 14. I mean, they're little teenage girls.
So you're saying one is the daughter of Paris and one is the slave girl?
No, one is Putnam's daughter, the big Mucky Muck in town's daughter, works at Paris's house. So she's in the house. And I'm not blaming it on her. I'm just saying she kind of had a different knowledge of the devil and magic, and
Right. Well, she might, yeah, who knows?
wasn't pure, so she wasn't as close, she could probably call something what it was.
Well, and I did read, I mean, this is the undercurrent I think we're going to talk about in everybody, but there was this parallel, everyone was doing their traditions while while they were being Puritans. It's not like they weren't divining things. I read last
Oh, for
night
sure.
at Springfield, there's a specific place that all the women would go to when they had to figure in the woods, then they had to figure something out, or they needed to check on the moon or do whatever they were doing. So for the girls to go somewhere like that,
How to divide this up, you know?
yeah, this is a cultural. So
And why divide it
who
up?
knows? Maybe they saw their mom. I mean, remember how
Yeah.
with daisies you pick the leaves and decide who your
Yeah.
husband is?
Uh-huh.
So okay, so they decided because who you married was your life as a girl. That's
Yes.
your only way you're going to survive.
Right.
So that
Yes.
was pretty important.
And who knows? I mean, we could say that's why, but because right when they were done that, this is when they started accusing people of being witches and going into convulsions and having bad attacks. And this is when it all started. These girls had gone. It was also happening, obviously, because the culture and people were accusing people of witchcraft in other places, but um also they were hearing the bickering in the town. They knew the competition. They knew they were in Salem, which is was a pretty, it wasn't the, I don't know, I think were hearing their fathers were very connected with politics, and they just knew. So for some reason, that's when they started. So I'll make a long story short because this is well documented. There's movies about all this and everything too. But our family comes into play because Mercy Lewis, who is a maid at the Putnam's house, and she's about their age. She's maybe 18. She possibly was dating our ancestor, like the lover of Bray Wilkins. So he's the man that maybe has the gay lover. Um,
Oh,
I
okay.
think he and that John guy were probably, but he
And
married John.
there's well documented
Yeah,
cases of that.
yeah.
Um,
So,
okay.
but he was a very highly respected member of the church, very big member of community. It was Will's Hill, that was where he lived. That was named Will's Hills because he took it from the last Native American man named Will, but it also worked because his last name was Wilkins, so it was Will's Hill, and you can still go there. It's a park and there's a pond or whatever. So
Holy cow.
so
You had
that's
a
our
great week of research. I could listen to this all day.
so that's our guy, Bray Wilkins. So Will's Hill is where all our people lived. And
Oh, okay.
we think that Mercy Lewis, who is she's famous because like I said, she's because of her 27 people were hung for witchcraft because she would just start everybody's a witch, but
Wait,
people would go to
Barbara
her.
was that?
No, this is Mercy Lewis, who we think was probably dating one of our guys' grandsons,
Okay.
one of Bray's grandsons, maybe. There's some, I couldn't find proof of it, but the couple places call them lovers or whatever. Um, anyway, uh, Bray's granddaughter named, and I'm gotta find it, uh, married a man named John Willard. And he was an outsider. He was from a different town. But he was married into the Bray family, so he was a constable, he got to go. He kind of rose through the ranks, and by all accounts, they had a happy marriage. They had 3 kids, but he didn't buy the witchcraft stuff. And he was sent out to go arrest people for witchcraft. And eventually he was like, I don't think this doesn't make sense. And I think you guys are freaking out because these girls, this building where these girls were starting to accuse people that they barely knew or people in town or some old lady that they didn't like. And the men that were running these trials were interviewing the girls and the accused and everybody in the same meeting house, which I guess was a big no-no. And so the girls got really good at puppeting. If the accused raised their hand, the girls would raise their hands and just went. But the town was relying on these girls to kind of point out the witches, and they were believing them, and they were shipping them off to Boston to sit in jail for their trial.
Okay.
John Willard was seeing all that. I'm sure he was thinking it's just ridiculous. But then, of course, then the girls said, well, John Willard's a witch. So they turned and they accused him. So he
He is our person?
he's our person. He's by marriage. Well, his kids, but she's not. His daughter isn't our direct.
Okay. So
Um,
they accused the constable.
they accused the constable of being a witch. And it's Bray's grandson-in-law. So they're messing with the Wills Hill family by doing that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So John gets freaked out because he's being called a witch. So he goes to his grandpa, father-in-law, Bray, who's up on Wills Hills, and is like, can you pray for me? I'm feeling like the finger's pointing towards me, and all I'm trying to say is maybe we should not be so quick to arrest all these people for witchcraft. And Bray, our grandpa guy, like made up an excuse, kind of gave him the cold shoulder, didn't want to, because he's an outsider, didn't want to help him, didn't want to pray with him.
What?
Yeah. So John got really worried about it. And some time passed, and Bray is in Boston with the Mucky Mucks, the leaders and things like that, having a dinner. And John Willard walks in and he's nervous and he doesn't really smile at Bray very much. And so Bray later that night gets a kidney stone and he's thinking, oh, he looked at me weird. This is his grandson-in-law. He looked at me weird. I wonder if this is why I'm sick. Like maybe he really is a witch. And so
So
he
we're
started
back
to
to the
read.
cow's milk from
Yes,
30 years ago.
kidney stone. And then he got back from Boston, and everybody on Wills Hills got the sickness. One of the teenage 17-year-old sons, which we think is Mercy Lewis's boyfriend, died.
Okay.
And so they bring Mercy and Ann Putnam over, and one other girl. They bring these teenage girls to the house, and they're running them down the hallway and like showing them the room where the teenage boy is sick. And they're like, oh, I see John Willard trying to kill him and at the ghost. And then they close the door and then they rush him down to where the grandpa is, and oh, they're sitting on his chest. And so these girls accuse John Willard of witchcraft. He goes to jail. There's a trial. Our grandpa guy testifies about the kidney stone. The two sisters, the aunts, of aunts-in-law, testify that he beats his wife, and he's like, I don't beat my wife. And he's like, can my wife come and testify? Because she'll say no, and she never shows up. And he and 7 other people in August are hung and dead. So they killed Martha's husband, father of 3 kids. This family, our family, got so into it and so believing and so hyped up, and so that they actually, it had to have felt like murdered their son, their grandson, their family. And what happened?
That's the bad end of that's where the tale of the distaff and the
Yes.
that's
Well, one thing that they do right, and I'm not sure if this is just history there are accounts that after this happened, that a couple of the uncles, of I think her name is Martha, John Willard's wife, Margaret. It's Margaret. Margaret was the wife that was left after he was killed. That was never beaten, or her uncles, so Bray's sons, hadn't believed it either. And they formed a committee to get rid of this Reverend Paris, which I didn't talk much about him, but he was a big part of accusing people of witchcraft. It was his daughter, his maid, his, But anyway, they got him removed, and supposedly Bray and Wills Hill actually became a refuge for accused people to come to from then on for the rest of the year or
So
whatever.
did he sort of repent, kind of?
I guess I assume the vibe I got in this, I'm assuming that it was such a, I mean, to watch the guy get hung and know that it was because some girls had visions or dreams, and then you got caught up from a kidney stone. And yes, that their grandson did die, but you know, the whole house was sick that night. So
It's weird how it's so similar to what we started with the Mary and Hugh Carson, how the whole
yeah.
community, it's like a sickness almost.
Hmm.
Um, okay, so what how does a community heal from that after that? So do they just keep going on, or
Well, that was in 1692 August, and so he was accused. All Mercy Lewis's people, it came to a big head because Mercy Lewis also accused one of the previous reverends of Salem Village of witchcraft, and so they had to go find him and brought him. So it, and that was 1692 May through August is when they hung them. But they say the witch trials went through 1993, 1693, and so, which isn't it interesting that the witch trials frenzy was 1690, 1692, 93, and then the French Revolution was 1792, 93. Isn't that interesting?
well, yes,
Bizarre.
because and what's also interesting is if you look at it through the lens of power, how the least powerful people in these communities, the 14-year-old girls,
Interesting.
had the power to kill men, older men.
Whoever they wanted, women. That was the other thing, is that they started with non-church member people,
Oh,
and then they started accusing church member people, good church member people, and they were tried and hung as well. Like it even overrode the whole, because it's hard to become a church member, you really have to prove it, and they were even able to get that reversed.
and this was, you're saying, 100 years before the American Revolution.
Yeah.
So there was no American values. There was no. They were kind of. It's like a petri dish trying
Yeah.
to figure this out.
It,
Um,
yeah. They were the first ones to start it without England's hand in it for a while.
so
But
how do you reconcile who our women were? You
well, I
know,
stayed there a long time after I read this. I was mad at Mercy Lewis. And then I read a little bit about her, and she had been severely abused. She was orphaned by, um, I forget what tribe it was, but the Native American had slaughtered her village and her parents, and then she got adopted, and then they were killed. Like she just had a horrible, horrible life, had been abused. So I felt bad for Mercy Lewis. She's not our woman. But I'm laying there thinking, like, those two aunts. So it'd be like me and you going in and testifying against Jared for making up lies to have him killed. That's what
and then
happened.
to go watch. I mean, what kind of a world are you living in?
I don't know, because
No.
the testimony they gave of him beating was secondhand too. So I just have to say that they never actually. So if it is true and he did beat him, that's terrible, horrible. But also he probably didn't have to get hung for witchcraft, you know. But the
Well, it's so weird that witchcraft was the tool we always assume that men used to demonize and kill women, but it's topsy turvy here.
women,
It's the women. It's weird to me how
yeah,
women kind of gain, like Mary Parsons. You know, she was stirring that.
Oh,
Uh,
she for sure.
husband was terrible, and
Yeah.
but she was obviously sick and sad with dying kids, and
Mhm.
you know, um, it's
The
like, oh, it's just very everything was off, kind of like what they were doing was wrong. I don't know from my
yes,
modern mind.
like they had shifted the timeline, shifted the dynamic or something with
They were poisoning their own wells
Mhm.
and living on land that, I mean, they were doing what they're starting to figure out now.
Yeah,
Humans are mobile.
right.
So we've all done it.
Well, taken over and done terrible things. Is it because religion became a commodity? So if you were a poor person and couldn't you owed at the company store, you weren't ever gonna get land like Will's Hill or whatever. Except these girls were rich. These Putnam girls that but these are the girls that are famous for everything you see in movies. The girls in the meeting house screaming and writhing and convulsing and their
I
stories
mean,
started not matching and
they grew up they grew up in a cult. They
yeah,
grew up with the trauma of getting on a ship and going to this weird land where you could die, or there were mysterious animals you didn't recognize. There were
yeah.
people coming to kill you, and you weren't supposed to be there. Even the elements you didn't
Ah.
understand.
It's like when
um
they talk about with child abuse, children that are in an abusive situation don't have any their very existence lives in rubber walls, like nothing is solid or and so you put a whole group of people in this land, they don't know what's behind that tree, the forest, that's where the frontier is, don't go there, and just you knew this one religion, and now we're gonna tell you about how that was wrong, and it's now this religion, and you can't be a part of it unless you do that. I mean, their whole world was different. I don't
I
know.
mean, could it be seen as children or young girls trying to take control of their trying to
Maybe, or they were just mean girls.
yeah, I
You
mean,
know? Were they just elite little girls? I don't know. And the important thing to remember is it wasn't just them. It was happening all over, you know.
yeah. I mean, we could talk about this another time, but I researched, they called it preaching sickness in
Uh-huh.
Scandinavia, and it happened about every 40 years. Women and girls would all of a sudden just be crazy, get crazy, start speaking in tongues, start being hysterical, start talking about the second coming and seeing visions, and they had a name for it. By like the 1600s it's been studied, so Scandinavia knew it would come in waves, kind of, and
Wow.
they didn't quite understand why. Like children would get up, people would have visions of children preaching, like you're talking about here with the, it's a weird thing. And it coincided with the missionaries coming to Denmark. They had just gotten over a preaching sickness thing. But it's almost, I don't know, some people have said, I've read that it's a release valve in a society when the people that have been pushed down so long, it's like a release valve every so often that they gain some manner of control by hysteria or something.
Ah, that makes
Um, so I don't know if the English had a reference for that. Like,
sense.
by 16 whatever, the Danish guys were like, "Well, here comes another bout. This is what's happening," and they weren't applying witch to it or
Yeah.
anything. Um,
A lot of these people were from Wales, and Wales was, they were they in the midst were having their own witch trials and kind of
oh
their
yeah, that's
they were
right.
trying to explain something away that was happening too.
That's
So
right. Which it kind of bled over into the colonies, right?
I
So
heard
where you wandered down this road, what are some highlights, or where do you want to go next, or what do you
I
think?
don't know, where do you think we should go next? I was amazed that of course, because we're using our own thread of our family to go through all these things, and I like that we brought in,
Yeah,
you know, pretty headliney kind of stuff, but it was I always come back to the women because, the Putnam daughter started it, but by the end of it, her mom was doing the same thing, and so sitting with the teenage girls doing all the same stuff, and the women, and maybe it's just my perspective, obviously the men have a big part of it, but the women seem to, um I didn't find any accounts of a logical woman saying that it was, but maybe I just didn't look hard enough. I'm sure that there are. I'm sure that there are. But it's the what you talk about, I'm trying to remember what I heard about how what you're talking about with the preaching sickness thing, that you can kind of track it. So we had the satanic panic in the 80s, right? And then we had the counterculture revolution. We had all these big major things that we had wars. And so if things get too boring or mundane or just there's not a lot of action or something,
I
that
wonder because you look at Lincoln and all the spiritualism that was going, that was a big outbreak at that time. Remember that? They were
huh?
magic balls, they were
Yes.
knocking the table.
Yes.
It is kind of a weird.
There's a pattern to it. So either something big needs to be happening in the universe or in the air, and if not, then the spiritual side, I'm going way off here, but the spiritual side kicks in and I mean, I don't know. We could go so many different directions. I'm fascinated with this with all the AI stuff of how I think
Yeah,
the higher technology and the more advanced it gets, I feel like the spirituality and bravery of people to explore and seek a little bit more is also amping up. I don't know.
I've been thinking about that a lot lately. Like this week, been thinking about that idea of like during the Industrial Revolution, now during this, there's always a back pedal to the primitive, to the
Mhm.
getting off the grid, to leaving in nature and wanting to, get back to, you know what I mean? So there
Yeah,
seems to be
right.
this kind of like this response push. I mean, I don't like to think about human the human story in a, how in a way or like you're progressing, you're going
No,
every
linear,
age,
right.
moves forward or whatever. I think it's more circular and organic because this is just me, but our biology is not as fast changing as our technology.
Mhm.
Maybe it's the body's reaction to,
That could be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, but there is a pattern there
Mhm.
that why every 40 years. And is it just European culture or is it,
I don't know.
you see it in other cultures?
I would imagine we see it everywhere because we're all just humans and every culture struggles with the why am I here? Who's making that lightning bolt over there? Or why is that happening? And so I imagine that's the case. I mean, you even look at the ancient, I always like to talk about it, the super ancient findings in Turkey and stuff of
Yes.
what is that about? What were they trying to do? Was it just a big sex den and they're just animals, or had they discovered astrology and they're actually charting, did they
Yeah.
know something big was coming, or were they trying to warn of something big that happened, or just
Yes.
yeah. So I put this back to these girls or this whole situation, the witch trials and the Puritans, and how similar it is with the Mormon experience, and um, just that I think it was this perfect blend of in their whatever technology was to them going to a new world, and also tr- having no answers, real answers. I don't know. Not
Well, and you've got a village made up of Welsh
yes.
people. I mean, remember when we were teenagers and from Utah to Ohio, the styles were so different, the
Uh-huh.
people were so different. They could say they're all from England, but when you dig into like Devon, England versus
Right.
Hudson, or
Right.
um, you're living with aliens. Like
Hmm.
everyone is coming from a different worldview,
And
right?
trying to grapple with the same God. Like, that's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah,
Of course
and
it was messy.
yeah, and maybe the only things they did have in common were these
Mhm.
deep Gaelic or whatever their deeper traditions were.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so I love this because I don't know. So to me, listening to this, what I wanted was itching to do was find all our women from the 1600s
Yes.
in America and map them out and
Yes.
sort of figure out what they were. I don't know. That's just kind of what was itching at
I
me.
think that's great. I started, a binder where I
Oh, I
want
love
to
your binders.
have my binder where I'm
Mm.
printing out their stories, and then I'm gonna put them all together in time periods. So if we wanted to know what was happening in the Civil War, okay, well, we had this woman, this woman, this woman. It's kind of like what we've been talking about. So if we want to keep exploring this, because there are more.
Yeah, there's a
One
so
this is James H. Sanders' line. Like that's Mary
this
comes
is
in,
one guy. All of
Wilkins,
this is his line.
which makes sense because not all of a lot of our people came over with the Mormons or whatever. But there were 1600s was interesting, not just in, I mean, it was interesting in Europe, it was interesting all over.
Yes, and to me, I had no idea we had women jumping on ships this early in
Yes,
our line.
that's right.
Like what is
Right.
and they're jumping on ships to join weird churches.
Right.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so
Yeah.
I find that really
Yeah.
interesting. And yeah, so
Okay, so
I
let's
don't
keep
know.
going with it. Let's see where Mary takes us. Or
So I mean, isn't it odd how she just sort of shuffled us off,
she sure did. I went down this huge, big rabbit hole for the rest of my whole week. And
which is
it
incredible.
was delightful and
I mean, the
poignant.
amount of research you've done in 1 week is
Well,
you connected two witch trial periods into one family line.
it would be cool to see how they cross over because I'm sure they do.
Yeah. I'm wondering if maybe well, where do you want to head?
Well, I it's interesting because you did talk about Mary's kids, and I know Springfield was flattened by a native it was the war some war, the French were paying the tribes to actually sabotage the English settlements, right?
Oh, oh, I see. I forgot all about that.
Yeah,
The
so
1700.
yeah, now we could just keep moving forward or backwards, whichever takes us, but it would be cool to get to the revolution. I know we have people on once we get to the revolution, we do have people over on another line
Yes,
or
the
in
more
more
something more.
Morgan, more? Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to, because she was in the 1600s too.
Yes. Oh, yes, and then there's a whole other line where he came, I think it was to Springfield. He came and
Yeah,
got his wife, and they had to walk 100 miles back to Springfield.
really.
Yeah.
I mean, so how I I wouldn't mind taking my sheets and
Do
taking
it.
the
Flip it over, I wanna see.
1600s with family search and just finding the girls. And what do you think
I
about
think
that?
that's awesome.
And connecting them, is that interesting to
That's
you?
fascinating, and then we could go on a walking tour.
Then we could talk a lot more context about what made these chicas tick. But
Yeah.
then we're kind of stuck in the 1600s. I don't know if you want to do that or if you want to do
I
more.
don't think we're gonna ever be stuck anywhere. I think we are being
Okay.
prompted and propelled where we're
Yeah, because I like the pace you're keeping with your binders where you're getting these women, at least we're getting their names on the wall.
yes. Yeah,
They're there
and a
and
lot
we
we
can start
we don't know their
connecting.
story yet, but they all have stories and
Yeah, I mean
so
these
much.
Welsh are crazy fun.
Yeah.
So and then we've got the Slovenian ones,
Yes.
going to be really fun.
And the
So
Italians.
and the Italians.
Yeah. So we'll be busy. A lot of binders. I think do your map and go where that takes you. I'll keep going. I mean, I had to cut myself off on going further on different directions. So I'll just keep going in those directions. But we had the distaff was the theme for this one, like
Yeah, I like that because it really helped us come back to,
the
I
weed.
mean, and what does distaff mean in the
Well, I think it's
dictionary?
a distaff. It's STAFF. I don't know though the root of the word, but it's the actual whole because you had your shaft and then the distaff on the top. Watch that documentary. It's really
Oh,
cute little guy.
I'm gonna watch that and we'll
Yeah.
put that in the show notes. And then this is interesting. I opened the Oxford Dictionary
Uh-huh. Oh, to
and it
read it?
says, you probably already did too,
Oh
but
my
it
goodness.
says phrases with distaff. Well, there's two definitions. One is the sticker spindle wound for spinning. The other one is of or concerning women.
Oh,
And the phrases are the distaff side, the female side of a family. The family title could be passed down through the distaff side. And in Old English, distaff um,
is it
is
bad?
no, it's the first element apparently related to the Middle Low German "diese," which means bunch of flax. So you start with the flax, and then the second word "staff" arose because spinning was done by women. Um, yes, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's used to describe the female side of a family. And
What?
then as the language grew, it came to mean involving women, female.
We are doing a distaff.
I know female members of a family, especially used to talk about people. we are spinning thread. No way! Involving female members of a family, especially used to talk about people.
It's like the original word for podcasts.
Yes. It says in the Bible, it appears in the famous Wise and Excellent Wife passage of Proverbs 31:19.
Oh, we've heard it before then. Distaff.
Symbolizing the diligent domestic work of women in providing for their households and creating essential goods like clothing. You kind of mentioned this. The verse describes the virtuous woman. She stretches out her hands to the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers.
Wow, wow, wow. That's
So our ancestors hold the raw fibers that are about to be spun into thread.
they sure do. Miss Mary sure did. Okay, we're on to something way big.
Wow. Oh, the instrument in Hebrew, it means the instrument used for twisting threads by a whirl.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's
That
what
Sarah,
That's what
you
we
were
do. Wow!
that's what we're doing. I'm just so in love with this.
He has it in his notes. Isn't it funny how I couldn't think of what the word was the first time we recorded?
Yes.
Big major word.
Okay, anyway, but it's meant as the women's side of the family. The man's side was the sword, like you said. That is so cool.
Wow.
Okay, so now we have a symbol.
Yes, we do.
We're gonna stab with our distaff.
Or fly on our distaff.
Our women are all sitting in this clump of flax.
Yes, they are.
And we're pulling them out, thread by thread.
Yes, they are. Their stories are all just a big old clump.
And this is our work.
Yeah. And gratitude, because a lot of the work I found was the work of other people.
Yes.
Somebody did have to get the flax and get it there, so I'm grateful for that. But now we need to.
Yes, and that we will get back to Mary Burke. She's not going to get
off the hook.
But good try.
I know, right? She's got a funny energy.
I love her.
This is